Hey, good morning, it's Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. Well, the day's finally arrived. My much anticipated new book, Along for the Ride, Getting Your Money to Work for You Through Real Estate and Stocks, is finally available. So below this video post, I'm going to post a link to Amazon.ca and Amazon.com if you're watching in the United States. There'll be a link there where you can order the book either in digital Kindle format or it's also available in paperback. It comes in at pretty close to 200 pages. It's been a labor of love for me as well as my co-author. I wrote this book in conjunction with a really brilliant young financial writer based in New York City that we collaborated on this book together. It's all my ideas and my concept, but I'm not a writer, so I needed someone to help me put my thoughts to paper. And but I'm real proud of this book. It's been a labor of love for the last 18 months for me. Everything I've learned in my 30 years in Vancouver real estate and investing and in stock investing is in this book. And I think it's mandatory reading for all my viewers. The $8 or $9 you're going to spend for the digital format will be well worth it in my opinion. I don't know of any other book that's out there like this, to be honest. There's lots of real estate only books. There's lots of books on investing. I kind of bridge the gap between the two. The main premise behind this book, though, is creating a passive income flow. And you know, you can read all the books about you know, all these books that are out there now on balancing your life and relieving stress and how not to, you know, become a slave to the grind and be able to spend more time with family and relax and meditation and all that other stuff. In my opinion, forget all those books. The best book that you can read to become less mentally fatigued and have less stress in your life and more time for the things that matter, like your family and friends and your health, is to start young and start creating a passive income machine. And that's really what this book is all about. It's going to be about buying, the first step should be real estate, second step maybe buying an investment property, and then also getting your money into the equity market, into stocks. Not just any stocks. I only buy dividend paying blue chip dividend growers. And I reinvest the cash flows in the form of the dividends, and I reinvest the cash flows in the form of the rent checks I get from my tenants, and build a passive income machine. And it's really what the whole premise of this book is about. How if you can start when you're in your 20s or 30s like I did, by the time you get into your 40s or early 50s, you no longer need to be getting up every morning and working for that paycheck. You can choose to if you want, if you enjoy your career and you want to stay busy, but you're not at the whim of your employer or your boss. You've got passive checks, income coming in every week or every month, and it buys you, it doesn't necessarily buy you happiness. What does buy you the happiness is the freedom that you get and the time that it gives you, that you don't have to work for a paycheck. So in this blog, as I say, I'll post a link to Amazon where you can buy the book. I'll just give you a quick overview of what you can expect in this book, Along for the Ride. And then over the next 3 or 4 months, I'll probably take it on a chapter by chapter basis. I'll do some future blogs and get into a little more in depth of what I talk about in each chapter. And so let's start. For this one, I'll just give you a quick overview of what you're going to find in the book. The first couple of chapters I open with on my book is called Winning the Mental Game of Real Estate. And the reason I put this at the beginning of the book, this kind of sets the table for the rest of the book. And winning the mental game is probably the most important thing if you want to get your money to work for you or if you want to achieve any type of financial security down the road. And I've blogged about this many times over the last 6 years about the investor mindset versus the speculator mindset. And you need to develop an investor mindset early. If you can't do that in the first couple of chapters of my book and take the advice I'm giving you in here, then it's going to be very difficult for you to get ahead in life, I'm afraid. It will be very difficult for you to get your money to work for you, accumulate any type of savings or retirement fund. You know, to do those things, to get your money working for you, you have to participate in a market environment, whether that's real estate or the stock market. My advice that I've been doling out here for the past 6 years is markets don't go up forever. Get used to the uncertainty. But if you want your money to work for you, you're going to have to get into that type of market that could fluctuate. But you can you can basically guarantee your returns if you give it enough runway, give it enough time. And right now in the Vancouver market, we're at absolute peak prices. One of these days, we're going to get what I call a run-of-the-mill correction. Last one we had was in 2012, so we're due for one. But you have to get comfortable with that, knowing that if you bought a house today or an investment property or a principal residence or even a stock, that a year from now or 6 months from now, you could you could be down 5%. It shouldn't matter to you though, because it's only a loss on paper. If you bought a principal residence, why are you fiddling with your principal residence? Hopefully you bought it for a long-term need. You need a roof over your head, and you can outlast any of those short-term market fluctuations. So my book, the first 2 chapters, Winning the Mental Game, I'll go into great detail on the mindset you need to have, the long-term thinking. And if you can't get through those first 2 chapters, the rest of my book isn't going to be of much value to you. The other ones I've got, another chapter, One Property at a Time. I'll talk about the first step, which if you're a young person watching my blog right now, the first step for you should be to buy your principal residence before you buy an investment property and before you start investing in the stock market. You should buy your principal residence, and there's a number of advantages. I've talked about them many times over the years. The first one, of course, is you take advantage of that principal residence exemption. All the capital gains from that point on grow tax-free. It's the only true tax shelter that the government gives us. So you should take full advantage of it. The next step after that I talk about is possibly buying an investment property. There's a couple of ways you can go there. You can go from your principal residence and convert that into an investment property. Make sure you adjust your capital cost base, and then buy a second property and move into that and go up the ladder from there. But I'll give you not only the first step, but the second, third step, how to get the banks working for you, how to tap into some equity to get the down payment for your second place. There's a number of chapters in here, as I say, on the steps to climbing the real estate ladder that I'll get into. Some of the other chapters, I'll talk about what I blogged about here before, what I call the Ghostship to wealth. I'll give you some examples in Vancouver here about buying up an investment property, putting a tenant in it, putting 20% down, and then just don't fiddle with it. Don't worry about what the market's doing or what you read in the Globe and Mail or the Vancouver Sun about what the market's doing. Who cares? You've got a tenant in there, he's paying you rent or she's paying you rent, just leave it. Chances are if you put 20% down right now, you're going to have income on that property. You won't have positive cash flow. It'll be about break even, or you may need to supplement it a few bucks every month. But you will have income on the property, and your tenant is doing 2 things. They're paying down all your interest, most if not all of your holding costs, and probably a good portion of your interest as well. And remember, you can only deduct the interest payment. You can't deduct the principal payment. So it's what I call the Ghostship to wealth. Buy it, put 20% down, put a tenant in there, rent it for 20 or 25 years, and then have a look at what it's worth then, and you'll have a paid off property. Some of the other things I get into as well, the second half of my book is on the equity market, stocks, which is the other way that I like to make money. I like to make money by buying investment properties, putting tenants in there, and collecting rent checks. The other thing I like to do is buy good dividend-paying stocks. Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble, Apple, Unilever, TD Bank, Royal Bank. I like to buy the stocks, keep them for long periods of time, take those dividends every quarter that they give me, and buy more stock, or like Warren Buffett calls the snowball effect. But I've got a couple of chapters in there on how dividends will make you very rich. All you need to do is buy them, hold them. Sure, you have to monitor the stocks that you're holding. It's not a huge job, but it's not completely passive. You do have to do some work every looking at my portfolio on a weekly or even a daily basis. But it's pretty much for the most part passive if you buy the right stocks. I'll also tell you really how the real estate or how the stock market really works, and the difference between a company like, say, Tesla, which is really just a cult stock, compared to a company like Johnson & Johnson or Apple. And there's a huge difference in those two types of companies. And I'll teach you what the difference is, and the companies you want to focus on buying and holding, and the ones that you're probably left best just to leave it for the speculators and the day traders. The final thing, some of the final chapters, I'll talk a lot more about real estate trends, where I see cities like Vancouver, Toronto, San Francisco, New York City, what I see as far as trends going, as far as unit sizes, units with parking, urban areas as opposed to more out in the suburbs. So I'll give you where I think the trends are going in real estate and some of the areas and type of product that you should be concentrating on. Finally, I'll give you a snapshot of my stock portfolio. It's not meant for someone to buy the book and replicate what I'm holding, but I like to put all my cards on the table and show you the portfolio that I've built for the last 30 years. I'm quite proud of it. Bought my first stock almost 30 years ago. It was shares in Pepsi Cola. Still own it, still collecting a huge dividend on it. It's spun off and split so many times I can't keep track of it now, but I'm probably up on that stock probably 800% over the last 28 or 29 years. So I'll give you a snapshot of my portfolio. I've also got a resource section in the book, and I'll also have a question and answer. So it's all the questions that people have submitted to me over the years about real estate and stocks, mostly real estate, and I'll answer those in the back of the book as well. So buy the book. I think it'll be the best $9 or $10 you spent. I think it's one of those books. I've modeled it on some of my favorite books that I've read over the years. I really think that this book, if you live in Canada or even in the United States, I've got a lot of viewers from the US. The things that I teach in this book are applicable to any city, any city in the world. I do talk a lot about Vancouver and specifics in Vancouver, but you can translate this pretty much to any North American city if you want it. But I'm hoping this book, I've modeled it on some of my other favorite books. I'm really hoping this book is one of those ones that you'd buy and keep it on your bookshelf in your library or your office that you can go back to from time to time. I've got probably 15 or 20 books that never leave my home library, and then I've got stacks that are in my garage. I'm hoping this is one of those ones that you'll refer back to time and time again for just knowledge, information, a little bit of motivation on keeping you on track. So stay tuned for more blogs over the summer. I'll kind of break each chapter down and do another blog on them in a little bit more detail. As always, I'm Owen Bigland. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week. By the way, I am updating the audio quality on my video blogs. Hopefully the sound quality is a little better. And I'd invite you, if you can, to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm coming up to 1,000 subscribers on there. It's the best way to keep up to date with all my video blogs. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.